Welcome to the Beer Connoisseur, Beer Buyers Club, and Gourmet Brewing's live stream and podcast, where we hear from amazing brewers as they share the secrets of their awesome beers and breweries. And I am thrilled at this moment because I am not hearing a big echo like I did when we did it last month. So far, so good. That's an awesome thing. I'm your host, Doug Piper, and I'm a certified Cicerone, and I'm a certified BJCP beer and mead judge. And I hope you'll join me on my journey as I learn and explore fine beverages. I see some folks, some names I recognize there in the chat. Looks like Erin Glass, I see her. Michael Stoker, Henry Excelsior. Henry's a regular. I see Henry a lot. Chris Guest is there. Lynn Davis. Those guys are the great guys from the Beer Connoisseur. Gary Fuller, I see you there. Gary's been to a lot of these. Steve, thank you for there. And Gary Brukin. So we've got a good crowd. And it's great to see you in the chat. Do share in there where you're joining us from, maybe what you're drinking. We would just love to hear, and especially if you have been to some of the breweries or you've had some of these beers. So that really makes it great. Now, I want to bring the brewers up on screen because that's, of course, while we're here. And we'll do our intros. And it takes a moment for me to do this. Let's see. I got one more. There we go. All five of us. Now, what I want to do is introduce you just briefly. We're going to have, in this order, Paul Liszewski from East Brother Beer Company out of Richmond, California. We're going to have Jerry Vietz from Unibroue from Chambly, Quebec, Canada. We're also going to have Dave Colt from Sun King Brewery from Indianapolis, Indiana, and Dave Whitham from Proclamation Ale Co in Warwick, Rhode Island. Now, we'll do this in 4 segments, each about 30 minutes long, and we're going to hear about their brewery. We're going to really discuss one of their beers, and then we'll take your questions. So do me a favor, when you ask a question, be sure to put in there the brewer that you intend for the question to go to. We'll be starting with Paul first. And so please, kind of direct the first group of questions towards Paul, but they'll all be able to talk to some degree or another. Now, I do want to introduce just a little bit more about where I am from. I am part of Gourmet Brewing, and Gourmet Brewing provides related content to brewing and enjoying the very best in fine beverages. Do me a favor and click on the green follow button in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and then you'll be notified instantly of new live streaming events. And this number, the count, really influences speakers. They look there first when they decide whether they're going to join me on a program or not. So the higher the number is, the better it is. You don't get junk mail from it. It's just a notification when I go live on the live streams, which is a couple of times a month. Now, one of the best parts is the Beer Connoisseur is part of this, and they are one of the highest read and most trusted sources of beer knowledge worldwide, with over 8 million readers. Their Beer Buyers Club provides an opportunity to buy highly rated and sought-after beers through Tavour. And Tavour is spelled Tavour. Now, the Tavour app is available in both Apple and Android version and allows members to purchase these unique beers which are delivered fresh to your home. And let me emphasize, they are super fresh, like just a few weeks old. So again, you can learn more about that by clicking the green button in the bottom center of the screen. I see Steve Hiller and Gary Brukins. Aaron is having a Bootstrap Insane Rush IPA from Longmont. Ooh, that sounds good. And Greg has a La Fin du Monde. Oh, wow, in a Tiku glass. Doing it right. I've got one of those, too. We'll be looking at that shortly. Now, the internet has been very unpredictable lately, and hopefully we will have a great event tonight. But I do want you to know, if the webinar is not playing correctly, 90% of the time, if you just refresh your browser window and be sure to use Google Chrome, most of the time that will fix things. Also, if you're just getting a lot of pixelization and it's unstable, you can reduce your bandwidth by selecting a lower resolution by clicking on the gear symbol in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Now, it's really important to get the Ask a Questions. So that is in the bottom center of the screen. Use the chat, but don't put questions in the chat. I don't always look there, so if you got a comment to make, you pick up a flavor that one of us didn't, that's a good place to put that kind of thing. But if you got a hard question, and I want lots of hard questions, we do a lot, please put it in the Ask a Question field, and please name the brewer that you're directing it to, if at all possible. Now, we're ready to get into segment 1 with Paul Liszewski, the head brewer of East Brother Brew Company. Now, Paul, I want to bring you up on screen here and get you full size, and our other brewers are going to join us back in just a few minutes once we get through this beginning part. All right, so now we almost got it here, Paul. There we go. I am really excited to be here today with Paul Liszewski, the head brewer of East Brother Beer Company. Paul's brewing career started with a basic home brewing kit. Now, how many of us would admit to that one? A few boil-overs and a highly hot beers later, his wife bought him a kettle and a propane burner and regulated his brewing hobby to the garage. After a few years of keeping his friends' and family's growlers filled and numerous of charity events, he decided it was time to escape his high-tech cube farm and take the plunge of becoming a professional brewer. Graduating from the Siebel Institute, he started with cleaning kegs and worked his way up the ranks to become head brewer, production manager at Devil's Canyon Brewing Company, prior to joining East Brother Brewing Company. He's most frequently spotted in his garage turning wrenches on his motorcycle. So I guess you had to give up home brewing. So a couple more things here. Brewery Awards include his Bo Pill Silver at the Great American Beer Festival. His Oatmeal Stout, which we're going to have tonight, is the highest rated stout by Beer Connoisseur. And his Red IPA, which I have not had, is the number 1 in Beer Connoisseur's specialty IPAs and was in the top 15 beers of Beer Connoisseur for 2019. Oh my gosh, Paul. That's a lot of stuff, a lot of accolades from home brewing. Can you tell me about the brewery? I haven't visited, but I have had your beer.
Sure. We're located here in Richmond, California. We're kind of the northeast side of the Bay Area, just over the Richmond Bridge. We're named after the East Brother Island Lighthouse, which is also a bed and breakfast. To my knowledge, we're the only beer that's ever been served on the East Brother Island. Let's see. So we started off in 2017. I joined the crew in 2018. Introduced a couple of series. We have a lager series and a freighter series, which have been kind of my outlets of creativity and fun. We're, tap room for what it's worth. That was just reopening. It's been last year was very exciting for us. We're just trying to do good beer, and having all the accolades come in was a very pleasant surprise.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, oatmeal stouts are one of my favorite styles, and it's my wife's favorite style also. So what I was hoping to do, I was going to take a close-up of the label here, and maybe you could start to describe some of the details of your oatmeal stout while I zoom in on the label. And
sure. I'm going to do my own little pour here as well. So we're not quite crazy on the whole naming our beers things. We kind of call it is what it is. We'll try to get a nice vigorous pour to make the Popa foam. Oh, too vigorous. Make the Popa foam happy. But you can get a nice, very dark beer. There's a little bit of hints of red. If you're out in the sunlight, it's almost like a mahogany. Very nice brown head that's a bit persistent with lots of tiny little bubbles. Aroma-wise, we get some nice, predominantly roast and chocolate. And then when you indulge yourself a little bit, you kind of pick up on the subtle coffee notes. It comes across a very light-bodied beer, but there's still some mouthfeel and some kind of creaminess to it. It's almost drinking like a mocha. One of the fun facts or fun things about this beer, it actually tastes really good as a beer float. So just drop some of your favorite ice cream in there, and it just makes a really nice, refreshing beer on for the summer. That's a nice pour there. And you even got our logo in there. That's awesome.
It really was not hard to pour. I mean, what a head on that beer. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I love head of, beers, and it kind of shows, showing off what the brewers can do, and really opens up the beer, releases some of those aromas and flavors, so you can really, really enjoy it.
Well, I can't wait to give it a try, so that's what I want to do next.
Right on.
Oh, wow. We've got mostly foam with that. Oh, wow. It's nice and silky. Ooh.
Yeah, so
that is mocha.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mocha's an excellent description of it.
Yeah, it's this is one of my favorite. I like this beer because we all tend to keep our beers in the refrigerators a little bit too cold. So if you just pour yourself a glass, I have a 3-year-old, so it's not like I can slam a beer like I used to. I'm always chasing her. But over the course of an evening, as it warms up and approaches room temperature, it really opens up and changes the flavor. You start picking up some of those dark fruits hidden in there and a little bit of spiciness. Yeah.
So anybody else in our group here brewing any stouts? Okay.
Brewing stouts all the time. Man, that beer looks delicious. I wish I had one right now.
Well, it is phenomenal. So tell me a little bit about some of the awards, Paul. I mean, the best stout? Wow.
Yeah, well, that we're still a young brewery, so we're still trying to figure it all out. And a couple of years ago, we started sending our beers out to reviewers. I'm more interested in the notes that we get back from them. Many of the reviewers are all BJCP judges, so getting something back and learning, I don't want to say from your mistakes, but learn what you're doing well and learn what you're not doing well, and improve on those areas. The art of brewing is the recipe formulation. The science is being able to do that same beer over and over again and having it taste exactly like that first batch that you fell in love with. Our approach is, we're doing traditional beers. We're not chasing, the latest fad in beers. I'll probably never do a hazy, for example. There's plenty of great hazy breweries right here in the Bay Area, and I don't need to compete with that. So it kind of falls into place of what we're doing well, I guess. But it was very cool to see our name pop up, and to be sitting in the same room with some of these other breweries who are very well respected and very well awarded. It was kind of a shock, and I was like, okay, we're doing something right. Let's just keep doing it, and let's see if we can do it better.
So what's a visit to your brewery like?
Once you find us, we're kind of tucked away in a little industrial park in Richmond. So as you make the right turn into our brewery across from the gypsum plant, And then we're tucked away behind a warehouse. You have to kind of walk down this, relatively long path. But once you get here, you kind of lose the fact that you're in a major metropolitan area. We have a little bit of wetlands right across our front door. We have a little bit of a mountain, a little bit of a hill. So we get great sunsets. Doesn't get too hot here. It's nice and cool. Great outdoor seating. We also do something called the Rec League. There's our brewery there. So we got video games, ping pong, pool, all these great things that you could do pre-COVID. But the tap room is situated right next to our brew deck. So you'll experience what it is to work in a brewery. We've been known to brew well into our tap room hours. So there's no hiding the magic.
Well, with awards like that, I'm surprised you're not hiding some things. So why don't we jump into the questions if you're ready to do that, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Shoot.
All right. So Gary has the first and most popular question. Paul, can you talk about the water profile for your oatmeal stout?
We do add some salts to it. I'm not trying to mimic any particular water style to make this happen. Being in the Bay Area, we get very good water, so we don't have to do a whole lot, but we are adding various salts to kind of accentuate hops or, kind of just the process more than, I'm trying to do Burton-on-Trent. I know that's not a good example for this beer, but we're just kind of tweaking it a little bit to make it work for us.
Well, I love the balance. What hops do you put in it?
We only use EKG, East Kent Goldings, in this one. So kind of you'll find many of my recipes are very tied into history and historical references. So, all likelihood, a proper English oatmeal stout would be using English ale yeast and EKG type hop.
It's my personal preference.
Yeah, it's every ingredient plays its part, and hops in oatmeal stout aren't they're kind of a supporting actor rather than the main. I'm a malt guy. I love malt. You'll find all of my beers tend to be a little malty side, but I love the flavors that you can pull out of the malt and highlight and showcase.
Well, you showcased it here. That was great. Great question, Gary. Chris has the next question. Paul, what's your favorite aspect of oatmeal stout? Is it the flavor, the aroma, or maybe there's another aspect?
I've always been a porter stout guy when I drink ales. That's kind of what I lean towards. One of my favorite beers is a big Russian Imperial stout. So lots and lots of flavor of malt. What I really like about our oatmeal stout is, it's still very approachable. It's not high ABV. It's something you can drink. If you like stouts, you can drink this one year round. You're not going to be overwhelmed by ABV or high residual sugar. Thick, viscous, heavy stout. It's always. We're in one of the local sporting venues, and I'll be sitting at home watching Untapped, and I'll be like, why are we getting all these check-ins from a baseball game? What the heck is going on? And it's like, oh, right, because our oatmeal stout is being served there right now. And, you don't think stout as a summer baseball beer.
Well, Eric says you cannot go wrong with fresh EKG, and I'm on that page with Eric.
If I
can't go wrong with fresh ingredients.
In general.
So I have to ask this question. What was the first beer you ever had, craft beer, that kind of said, holy crap, this is what I want to do?
You're gonna laugh, but it's also top of mind. So Pete Slotsberg's birthday is today, so happy birthday, Pete. One of the oldest craft beers I remember drink is Pete's Wicked Ale. And then when I was going to college and, working tables, waiting and stuff, there was a hotel bar across the street. They had a little refrigerator they used to call Paul's Fridge, and they would just always make sure they had something new and different for me to try. And quite honestly, many moon ago, we didn't have Untappd, so I never thought about writing down or anything all the beers I've had. But I think if there's so many styles and beers out there, you never stop trying. You're going to find there's a beer for everybody, and you just have to keep trying hundreds of beers sometimes to find that one that really speaks to you.
For those people who think they don't like stouts, do you have a recommendation for them, Paul? Sounds like you're pretty much the stout expert.
The irony is my license plate's lager. I wish I had a good answer for that. It's it covers such a wide variety. I think I do gravitate towards your higher ABV, viscous, barrel-aged stouts. You drink a 20-ounce pour, well, not at once, but, over the course of the evening, you really get to experience that beer on so many different levels. I think our oatmeal stout is a great gateway stout. It's very approachable. It's, there's a preconceived notion that dark beers are heavy and fulling and high ABV, and that's just not true. There's a vast variety out there, and just get out and try them.
Do I remember? I think it was 5.4%.
That's correct.
Okay. Very smooth, very nice. We've got a couple more questions there, Paul. Thank you, Chris. That was a good one. Steve is asking, what is the distribution reach of East Brother Beer Company?
We are throughout California right now. We signed on with a local distributor. Our plan was to kind of saturate the Bay Area and slowly expand. COVID kind of changed all that for us. We bought a canning line a little over a year ago. Since we've been able to crank out cans, we've opened up distribution throughout all of California, which is great. I spent a little bit of time in LA, so it's good to get my beer into my friends' hands down there. But you can find us all through there. And not quite sure where we're looking next. I know kegs are going to come back online soon, and the team's going to be busy very quickly.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Steve. Good question. Sounds like Steve might be a customer. Chris asks, Paul, is the oatmeal stout your favorite beer to brew, or is it possibly another East Brother offering?
It's a great beer to brew because it is so aromatic, and when you're drinking your coffee up on the brew deck, it really kind of blends in really, really nicely. And I love chocolate, I love coffee, so you kind of get that overwhelming aroma from it. Brewing lagers, it's not quite the same kind of aroma profile that's coming from it, and it's usually using a couple of malts and a couple of hops, so it's not very exciting to mill and and whatnot. But yeah, as an interesting question. I might change my mind later, but
well, how about seasonal? I find we have favorites for different types of seasons. Does that make it easier to answer?
Not much. when you're doing lagers, you got 6 weeks or more to wait for them to come out. So there's that anticipation. Our fest beer is about to come out in a little over about 10 days, a week. About 2 weeks, we'll call it. So that one's been, I enjoy that one because we use a fresh local malt stir. The malt aroma using that super fresh malt is really incredible. And then you're up on the deck for the day, and then knowing you're going to have 6 weeks or so of anticipation of like, how is this beer going to taste when it's finished? Yeah.
Well, Paul, in the last few minutes that we've got here before we move on to Jerry, maybe you can share some things coming up at the brewery we can look forward to. Is there a new release, some improvements at the brewery, something we can look forward to?
Sure. I think we just got a couple 100-barrel fermenters in this year. They're online and up and running, so they're going to be dedicated to one beer, which I'm very excited about. Today's Wednesday, so Monday we had a new canning person start, so that is going to relieve a lot of stress from my life, which is good. Which I mentioned, so our lager series, Fest Beer, is coming out the second Friday of September. I think I would know my own release dates. I just got an email saying cans are going to be delayed, so my heart rate's up a little bit. But
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's minor stress of everything else going on. We're brewing a Tripel next week, so that was going to be released early October, which I'm very excited about. We just reopened our tap room 3 days a week, and amidst of COVID and Northern California, or basically all of California, burning right now, we're only allowed to have people outside and with food, and just to have, people come back, and despite the poor air quality, coming back in force back to the brewery has been very refreshing. It makes us happy, and look forward to opening up, a few more days of the week, and I'm looking forward to get things back to normal or whatever that might be. But I'm just happy to see people coming back to the tap room and showing their support for us.
Well, Chris says stay safe to all you California folks out there, and I will certainly echo that comment. And Steve says he's going to have to get his family to send him some of your beer. He must have some family out there in California. So, Steve, you've got another fan, I think.
All right, on.
Well, Paul, this was fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've learned all about your brewery. Had the best stout, according to Beer Connoisseur, which is a real treat. It's been delicious to have it, and in your nice signature glass. Thank you so much for that. And I hope you'll hang around, because I hope you'll jump into some of the other questions. We've got Jerry next, and so we're going to transition to that. So anyway, cheers. Thank you very much, Paul.
Right on. Thank you. Cheers.
All right, we are going to move on to the next segment, and just as before, we will jump in here, and I'm going to rearrange some glassware in just a moment, but let's start with Jerry Vietz. So,
hi, Doug.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. How about you?
So, I am doing fantastic, and the more beer I get, the better it gets. Look, you look like you're pouring yours already.
Yeah, I just make sure that everything is fine here.
Well, I hadn't had one of yours that was not, but let me give you a brief introduction so everybody will just appreciate what's going on here. And Chris said he heard your cork pop.
I love these 750 bottles.
Jerry Vietz of Unibroue in Chambly, Quebec, Canada. He is a self-proclaimed simple man, but his resume would suggest anything but that. Prior to joining the brewery in 2003, he had previously studied applied science, food biochemistry, science and technology of malting and brewing for 8 years. That, of course, coincided with plenty of experimented concoctions that he was eager to share with his family and friends, and as he puts it, a pretty profound relationship with yeast. All this led to what seemed to be a role waiting for him, that in 2007 he was anointed the brewmaster title of Unibroue. Now, Unibroue has earned, and I hope I've got these up to date and correct, 374 international medals.
Correct. Yeah.
La Fête du Monde has earned 56 gold and platinum awards. Blanc de Le Feu, how'd I do? Did I get close?
Yeah, that's close. That's close. I could pick it, you know.
Okay, you can make it. Okay. Blanc de Fleur, the World Beer Award for the best pale beer.
Yeah, blonde from hell. There you go.
And Unibreue 17, the world's best dark beer. Now, Jerry, I mean, I've been doing these a little while, but I've never seen very many pedigrees like that. Can you share a little bit about all these awards in Unibreue?
Yeah, sure. We're very, very proud of our success for sure. And it's so fantastic. You know, I didn't start actually in brewing. I started in the world of cider. Then I moved to the world of wine. And finally, I landed in the world of beer with Unibrew in 2003 as a brewing manager, director of brewing operation here. So, since then, I touched pretty much everything at the brewery from continuous improvement, maintenance, budget, everything, you know, related to management. So, you know, we're the first, very proud to say we're the first brewery in the New World in Americas to specialize in bottle and keg reformatted ales, and soon in can reformatted ales as well, because we're investing right now 15 millions in a brand new can line at the brewery. We were forced to do that, obviously, with the trend on the market. I know Paul mentioned, you know, the hard time he has and the delay on the cans, so we're kind of going through the same thing here, you know, at the brewery.
Well, but everything I've had from you so far is bottles. Do you do some canning also along with it?
Yeah, we started to can, and it's a recent investment actually. So we do have cans. I explain a little bit more about, like, we have a variety of products right now, and you know, those are the cans. So I can tell a little more later about this once we are done with La Fin du Monde description.
Well, speaking of that, now before I mess with mine too much, now you had told me there were some special ways that you would like this handled, which is a little bit different than most triples that I've ever dealt with. Can you walk that through us a little bit, and I will make sure the side camera is nice and focused in on this beautiful beer.
Yeah, sure. So basically, you know, when we have like these beers, especially for the 750 ml bottle like this, we want to make sure that we swirl the bottle like this. It's our pouring ritual, I like to say, because, you know, all our beers are reformatted in the bottles. So basically, we use the same process they use for champagne. When we package the beer, it's flat with those precise amount of yeast and priming sugar, and then we store in warm room for weeks, allow natural carbonation to occur in the liquid. So by doing this, you make sure, especially for a large bottle, you make sure that the yeast will, if this glass will be clear, you can easily see what I'm talking about. The yeast will come back in the liquid to have an homogeneous liquid. It's very important precisely for these large bottles because you want to make sure you have, if you pour in 2 or 3 different glasses to share with people, we like to share the moment. It's one of our slogan at the brewery. So we want to make sure that everybody has the same experience. So if you don't do this, then you pour, the first glass will be very clear, then you pour the second glass will be slightly hazier, and then muddy at the end. So basically you have 4 different beer coming out of a single bottle, So you want to make sure to avoid that and put back the yeast in suspension. The reason why we want to do this, very often I know people want to stay away from doing that and keep the yeast at the bottom and just pour very gently and leave the yeast in the bottle. We never reuse our yeast. So we always pitch with fresh yeast. There are a few reasons behind that. First of all, we use multiple yeast strains at the brewery, so we are very afraid about cross-contamination that will change the profile of the beer. And also the fact that we're using multiple ingredients such as spices, herbs, flowers, fruits. So these particles as part of the settlement with yeast, we don't want them to convey in another profile of beer. So for that reason, we do propagate fresh yeast every week at the brewery for the different beers. So we never reuse them. So the yeast is very happy, and the yeast will not convey a flaw in the beer.
I think you've already opened yours, but I'd like to pour mine now. And as I pour it, do you mind going through some more descriptions?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, La Fin du Monde, we released in 94, so 1994. It's a triple, a Belgian-style triple, obviously, because we're located in Canada. So this beer is, as any triple, higher in alcohol. But we conceived this beer to make sure that it's very well balanced, so you don't get hit by ethylic notes or very boozy kind of a feel. So you want to make sure that you have these notes of alcohol at 9% very well integrated in the liquid. So when you look at that, obviously, you see the head. It's very important to mention because the beer is reformatted. It's probably, I'm not sure if it's very clear for the folks that look at the video here, is you look at this fizz, that fizz is very interesting to mention that it's the refermentation is responsible for very tiny bubbles. So it's like comparing a champagne with a sparkling wine, let's say. So that refermentation that occur in the bottle leads to very fine bubbles, and these fine bubbles are also very responsible for the head that you have, the very nice creamy head there. Look at this beautiful liquid gold. We like to say our Fin du Monde, by the way, is our champagne of beer, but also our liquid gold, And that champagne-like effervescence, it's very pleasant in the mouth as well. The beer features delicate, spicy phenols and balanced malty and fruitiness. At the end, it's, to me, the perfect balance between that maltiness, that fruitiness, and spiciness that you can hope for in a beer. So, again, we earned, as you mentioned earlier, 56 international medals among the 374 medals that we earned. So that's our most awarded beer, with 33 gold and 13 platinum medals. So, and also Fin du Monde was also named World's Best Triple 2 years in a row at the World Beer Awards in London, UK, which is pretty much the Olympics of beer. So we're very, very happy about the success of this beer. I would say the ongoing success, because when you think about that, we released this beer first in 1994, and I mean, brewing a beer is one thing, but brewing it with consistency, that kind of artisanal beer with consistency, and make it the same experience for our consumers, batch after batch, for that many years now, so very happy about the success of this beer.
Well, I think it may be the first beer I've ever had where the head, minutes after the pour, continued to build. That's a 4-finger head. Still.
Yeah, and it could remain like this for minutes and minutes, if you don't take a sip. So it's like I like to compare it to a cupcake,
I was about to say it looks like dessert. It really does not look like a beer.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal. And the glassware, Jerry, I mean, you have your name and signature on it. That's a first for me.
Yeah, that's a glass. Actually, there's a story behind anything at Unibrew. So that glass came from a funny story. It's another series of beer. Actually, that glass was designed for our series Blonde de l'Enfer. You were talking about is part of that series. We have Resolution. We have 17 Grand Reserve, Lune de Miel, different beers, and those are like, let's say, winter seasonals. And very, most of the time, high-rated beer by Beer Connoisseur, obviously, and other also international awards that we won. So very nice glass. And, it came to happen, this glass, I had to mention very briefly, is I was in Vegas for the release of La Résolution back in 2015. And we were ready to do a video around the release of the beer, and we realized at very last minute that we didn't have any glassware, Unibrew glassware. And since I was videotaped and everything, so I was looking for a glass that will do the perfect experience, lead the perfect experience for La Résolution, which is a dark ale. It's a Christmas ale with nice spicy notes. So I went at the bar and started to drink the Resolution that was on tap from different glassware at the wine bar, and that's the one I picked. We slightly modified this, as a design, but that was the sommelier glass that was picked, and finally it became the glass that we use for all our specialty brew.
I wish I had a dime. I think I could float it on it.
Hey Jerry, how many different glasses did you have to try before you found the right one?
Boy, that was such a long day, a long week, I would say. I tried probably at least 5 different glasses that we tried and pick. Okay, one puts more emphasis on the aroma.
Yeah,
and you can find a video. There's a video on the web about that, and you see the glass. It's a generic glass, obviously, because that was the night that came the idea,
Yeah.
on spot. And it could look like people so uncomfortable because nobody wanted to tell me that they had no glassware, and they knew how important it is for me because we have different glassware for all our beers, I
was thinking they're trying to just hand you a shaker pint and call it a day. I also wanted to. Can I say one thing really quick? Because I had a little moment for a second. Is that funny? The first, as homebrewers they start and they make clone beers. My second beer that I ever brewed, and I'm sure it was spot on, was a Witham de Moncton. So, thank you. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Especially when we first started to release the beer, it came at the time that we really first started to export our beers as well, because we've been exported all over the planet, and when you look at that Fin du Monde here, Japan, that's a very old bottle, but it's that one was in Japan, and when you look at this bottle here, specially released for Europe, because we had to make like a legally kind of lighter version. You see 8.4, so a Fin du Monde light, for Europe, for our friends in Europe. So you know, that was at the time we first started to distribute the beer in US as well. And the beer became so popular back then because the scene of craft brewery wasn't the same it is today, obviously.
Right.
And that beer became so popular that people started to name the brewery La Fin du Monde Brewery. So, and that at
Guilty,
that time,
guilty as charged right there.
and you see the Unibrew logo, the first one was with the wings, but that's when we decided to start to put the Unibrew logo on the foils to communicate our consumers. This is not the only beer we have. You know, we have also many other beers. Back then we had the Blanche and the Maudit, and then came the Raffman, the Aubenit, and so on, you know, so.
Yeah, I definitely knew you as the La Fin du Monde Brewery, for sure.
Yeah.
Thought it was your flagship, and that was it, you know?
Yeah.
Right on.
And, you know, I talk about the balance. I think it's really important. Anyway, it's a characteristic of the triples, you know. We're very proud with this triple, obviously, but, you know, at the same time, when I look at this is we need to have something higher in alcohol. You know, we're in the north, you know, we're your friends from the north, so it's getting cold most half of the year here, you know, it's crazy. Even like at night this week we started to drop below 50, so, and we're still in the middle of the summer, you know, so we need these high octanes to keep us warm,
Sustained through the winter.
yeah.
But that is a scary 9%, Jerry.
Yeah.
You would not know it's there. It's
Oh, yeah.
really.
I've seen so many folks, you know, coming back when I gave conferences and classes and stuff, and, you know, bringing beer there and going out for dinner with the organizer, and then coming back and seeing people like walking and having a hard time because you only drink that, but you don't feel the alcohol. So when they're not used to Unibrew,
Until you stand up.
Yeah, it's easy to fall in the pitfall, let's say. You know?
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, let's move into the questions if that's okay.
Yes.
But I think your beer really stole the show. That was phenomenal. Really photographed well. Greg says it is so easy to drink, but Lynn's asking, can you find Unibrew in Australia?
There's a guy in Australia that keeps writing to me on social media since 2009. That's when we stopped distributing in Australia. It doesn't mean that we won't, because at some point we reached the maximum capacity of the brewery, and we were starting to have our own market suffering from that. So we had to stop gradually exporting in Australia, in Europe, and also South America at some point. But gradually we are reopening these markets now. So we have our beers available in different countries. I don't think that Australia is still there. But that guy, I remember when he realized that Unibrew will no longer be available, made like the big loop around where he was, and he stole all the Unibrew bottles he could find, Terrible and Fin du Monde and Maudit, and he grabbed them all at home. So he had enough for at least 2 years, you know, and he was sending me posts, him opening these precious bottles, you know, until the end, and this is like the very last bottle I have.
It sounds like COVID.
Yeah.
You know? It's fine.
That was
I'm your number
pre-COVID,
one fan.
All right. Well, we got to go through these questions quick. Apparently, Jerry, this is somebody you know. Jerry, Brian the photographer from Boogie. Did you make any special brews that sing the blues?
All my brews can sing the blues, and Brian knows about that.
That sounds like an inside conversation.
No, that's okay. It's a photographer from one of the events I always attend. For that many years, I don't know, maybe over 10 years, you know. Unfortunately, they had to cancel this year. That's the same weekend they had Woodstock. So, and it became like a tradition. So I'm there for vacation, but it's very hard for me to be there on vacation for the reason that you know. So always a good time, though. Look forward to be back there. It's in New Hampshire. Very nice fest.
Chris asked, Jerry, what's the backstory behind your trademark bowler hat?
That's a very old, actually I started to wear bowler hats, different hats at the end, bowler hats way before I started to work with Unibrew. But when I joined the brewery, at one event I had this hat, and you know, people, they got familiar to this hat, and then I showed up at other events and people, hey, where's the bowler hat? Where's the bowler hat? So that became the main object of conversation at some point. I even met journalists asking me about and just writing a full story behind the hat. So at some point, you know, rather than showing at one event and having to answer questions about the reason why I'm not wearing my hat, I decided to wear my hat. So that's one of the reasons why I wear it today still.
Well, I love it. It does appear to be your signature.
Yeah.
So Chris asked, Jerry, what's your favorite aspect of Le Fin du Monde? The flavor or the aroma, or is there another aspect, maybe the bubbles?
To me, the Fin du Monde, my favorite aspect, first of all, I'm really big on dark beers. So my favorite kind of beer. So I look forward, Paul, by the way, to try your stout. Next time I'm in US, you know, after we're done with dealing with that COVID thing, I make sure I look for your stout, you know.
I'll bring some. You're going to be easy to spot.
Yeah, bring some and go back. So, you know, I love every beer as its occasion. What I really like about the Fin du Monde is so versatile. Let me explain. You know, we have like these Unibrew recipes, you know, like we like to cook, because the way I brew beers, I use spices, flours, and all the ingredients that you can find. And very often, like inspiration for my beers, they start in kitchen and vice versa. So at some point, you know, when you think about La Fin du Monde, what I think is really interesting is the fact that it pairs so well with so many things, so many cheeses, so many different dishes. It's very versatile. So when you cook with this beer, you can use it at different sauce, different occasion, and it's always a good experience for people. And that Fin du Monde, people at the event, sometime I meet, they say they don't like beer. Oh no, I'm a wine person. You know, most of the time it's like the white, they come with their beer guy at the events and say, no, sorry, I don't drink beer. And say, you got to give it a try, you know. And they love the experience drinking the Fin du Monde. It's so complex with all the different notes that you can find there, floral, fruity, spicy. So that makes it very versatile beer.
Jerry, I'm just admiring the lacing on the glass. That is one beautiful beer. And by the way, Chris said he thought that you might have a beer hiding under your bowler.
No, that's where I keep all the ideas, though, to brewing the next beer.
So, he's right. Touche. Chris asks, what role does yeast play in the taste of Le Fin du Monde?
Chris asked what? Sorry?
What role does yeast play in the taste flavor profile?
Oh, yeast.
Le Fin du Monde.
My good friends. Yeah. Yeast, you know, to me, I dreamed about yeast for years, by the way, when I did my studies. So, I mean, yeast to me, it's everything. You know, we were talking about malts earlier with Paul. You know, I have the same connection or relationship with yeast that Paul has with malt, you know. And I like to say that yeast is the signature of the beer. So I tried for some of these beers to brew the same recipe with different of our yeast strains, and the result was always different, from a yeast to another. So it definitely has an impact on the overall flavor. And the fact that we don't overpower any aspect of this beer, so the yeast has more room to open like spicy phenols. And as the beer, what I would like to mention as well is the shelf life, because the beer is not pasteurized and is alive. So the beer ages beautifully as well. So the shelf life of this beer is 3 to 5 years. But I already cracked like bottles, 6-liter bottles of Fin de Monde at Even from 2000 2 years ago in Philly, and it was phenomenal still. But as the beer ages, the yeast will also change the character and the flavor of the beer. I already opened a Fin de Monde that tasted like pear Williams. So many pear notes that I don't normally get in this beer, but just by aging and the way it aged and open and gain complexity over aging, it's very beautiful. And yeast is responsible for that, obviously. So.
Well, in the last few minutes, I have a quick question. And then I'd love to hear what's new coming from Unibrew. Mm-hmm. How long could you age this? I've got this nice 750. How long could I age it? And would you recommend it?
The shelf life that I said, the shelf life for these beers, the shelf life that I have, the bottle you probably have a best before on the neck. So it's 3 years.
2 years.
That's a recommended shelf life, but I tell you, no doubt, with that type of beer, you can age up to 5 years. Probably even more, but depends on the taste of everyone. Some people, they like it fresh. Some people, they like it with a little aging. So it depends preference of the different tasters, let's say.
Well, that was fantastic. So what can we look forward to from Unibrew?
But, we talked about cans because obviously we don't suffer as much as the other folks, because these bottles with the corks is pretty different, as an experience. So we still have good market for the bottles, but at the same time, people look for cans today. So we have like this series that we decided to release 2 years ago. It's called Autre Chose. By the way, Autre Chose means something else. And the reason is simple. You see India Pale Lager. So we have this IPL here with the guy, brewing, stirring the magic potion there. So we already released a peach IPA. That was the first one. A ginger session ale. That was the second one. And recently IPL, India Pale Lager. So those are styles that we explore outside of the Franco-Belgian style reformatted. So those are forest carbonated and different styles outside of the DNA of Unibrew, let's say. So something very interesting to try, and that will be the series that will probably come out with a stout, Paul, as an example. The other thing also that we have going on, and I don't have visual right now because I asked for the labels or the packaging, but it will come in only next week. We will release a very special beer. It's another triple because we've been asked to brew a hoppy triple for so long. So that will be a Belgian hoppy triple reformatted, and as a the Fin de Monde, to surf on the awareness of the Fin de Monde, we will call the beer Ce n'est pas la fin du monde. It's not the end of the world. So you'll see the same thing, that beautiful province of Quebec, and with the a good portion of North America as well. But rather than having the gold color, representation of what you have, the color of the beer here, you have the green forest, and I use nice modern hops from the New World in this beer to offer a very good experience once again with a triple, but with much more punchy on the hop and bitter side, let's say. So this beer will be available in a mixed pack sometime in US. I don't have exactly the details around that, but you have to stay tuned for this.
Wow. Well,
Can I
Jerry, this has been a lot of fun. And what an experience, and what a beautiful glass, what a beautiful beer in the glass. Still has some head, and still lots of bubbles, just like champagne. So,
Jerry,
cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
do you have a sweet spot for Le Fin du Monde? Like date-wise? And then I'll let it go. Sorry. I wanted to ask like 10 minutes.
No nasty things online today, but yeah, I do have some experience. Obviously, with these high octanes, you can't go wrong. So most of the time, this is a lovely beer, so you have to go lovely with this beer,
Cool.
All right. Well, Jerry, I hope you'll hang around for the rest of our program. We look forward to your input on the other beers. So I'm going to hide you for just a few minutes and invite you back, Paul and Dave, and then Mr. Colt. We are ready to talk about your delicious beers. How are you?
I mean, I'm great. How's everybody out there? I hope everybody's having a great time this evening. I know I am hearing some fantastic stuff from the other brewers.
Well, we've certainly got a lot of good activity in the chat there, and I think we've got a good, fun crowd here that's ready to try something else. But let me introduce you, if you don't mind, because you have a pretty amazing pedigree yourself. So Dave Colt has been working as a bartender, manager, and brewer in restaurants around the Indianapolis area for over 20 years. He's brewed at Circle V in Castleton, Indiana, the Ram Restaurant and Brewery. Then he and co-founder Clay Robinson came up with the concept for Sun King, which began operation back in 2009. Since then, they have more than 35 national awards and has been awarded 6 Festival of Wood and Barrel-Aged Beer Awards. Dave recently completed his distiller's education working with the world-renowned distillers at the Distilled Spirits Epicenter in Kentucky. Now, awards, there's no shortage of those. Sun King has won more Great American Beer Festival and World Beer Cup medals combined than any other Indiana brewery. He ranks in all top 5 of the combined GABF and World Beer Cup medal recipients worldwide in that time span. He's named the Grand Champion Brewery at the 2019 U.S. Open Championship. Wow. I can't wait to come visit you sometime. Can you tell me what I would see? I've already seen a lot of comments about your the room you're in right there. Is that your tap room, or is that a barrel room?
That's one of our barrel rooms. This happens to be our sour barrel aging area. So if you see a fruit fly kind of zip by, well, they love sours. So if you come to the mothership, we have 5 locations presently around the greater Indianapolis area, including our distillery in Carmel, Indiana. But if you come to the mothership, we've got about 50,000 square feet happening. Here, you'll walk into the tap room, and then you'll see our brew house and fermentation tanks. And then through sort of a corridor, you'll see our canning line and our cellar side of things. So, golly, yeah, a little bit going on. We started in 2009 with a hope and a dream and a prayer that somebody might care about our beer one day. And we're up to about 32,000 barrels as of last year. So I think fun, friendly folks, and a congenial atmosphere that is family friendly.
Well, I am trying to tune in here on your beautiful beer, and I think I've about got it here.
So to give you a little background information on barrel-aged donuts, this is our first foray into a pastry stout. As we got to about, we were approaching batch 5,000, we just were kicking around in production. Hey, what fun thing haven't we done yet? And producing, a stout with buttload of donuts in it. Just sounded like a whole lot of fun. So I'll give you a picture of the donut that inspired it from a local donut company, Jack's. We had a conversation with the owners there and came up with a chocolate cake donut with chocolate glaze. So we incorporated that into the mash bill. We brewed this beer well over a year ago. I hate to say this, but 500 donuts were very much harmed in the making of this beer. So, yeah, I mean, the holes, everything into the mix. So what we are looking for and what we think this beer represents is the feeling of drinking a lovely, luscious chocolate donut in the mix. So as you pour the beer, you'll notice that unlike the beautiful Le Fin du Monde, we won't have as much head. Obviously, donuts are typically fried, so there's a little oil residue that happens to get into the mash as well. So it really kind of cuts down on the head. But don't be fooled. It's still a very delicious beer. It clocks in, the barrel-aged version, clocks in at about 10.4 ABV. So it's no slouch on that front. We aged it for a year in 13-year-old Old Fitzgerald barrels. And we picked those specifically because the tasting notes and the flavor that you get from the Old Fitz, is vanilla bean and frosting and honey and cake and caramel. We did add some chocolate and a little vanilla bean to the barrel itself for mine as well. So you can see it's, not jet black, but a very dark brown beverage that has all the elements, including the frosting, I think, into the mix, plus that lovely little kick from bourbon. I'm going to take a sip because it looks delicious.
Well, it looks awesome. I think I want to let everybody appreciate the picture, though. It is beautiful beer.
So when we were, chatting, we often do a lot of fun experimental type stuff, and we're not afraid to try things, including, jamming a bunch of Indiana popcorn into beer. When we came up to batch 5,000, we're like, let's celebrate with something sweet and fun. It does have, I think some really nice light toast notes, a little bit of smoke, but the chocolate isn't overwhelmingly sweet, as in a milk chocolate. I think it's more, like a dark chocolate with just, shading toward bitter baker's chocolate. And that's part of the toast and char coming from the barrel.
Boy, it smells like a wonderful dessert. I mean, it is just aromatically just phenomenal.
In fact, Doug, you're the only person outside of the brewery to ever have this beer because we're releasing it next Friday or a week from Friday.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Well, what a privilege.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Wow. That is so reminiscent of a chocolate donut. It is phenomenal. Now, 500 donuts in how much beer?
And about 28 barrels.
Wow. That and who got to clean out the fermenter?
It all went into the mash. So luckily the mash rakes and the progressive cavity pump got it out of the building. So it was a fun, though, sort of old school fireman bucket brigade, handing a box to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, on up into the mash tun.
So was there some sort of stir or anything that sort of kept it all from settling?
Yeah, we've got a mash rake in our 30-barrel Newlands brew house. So that just, we kept that whirling around after we did our initial mash in, and then put the donuts in on top and watched them be harmed a lot.
Wow. The aromatics are just phenomenal. I mean, and that's your first pastry stout.
It's the first one we ever made, yeah.
So does that have any lactose added to it?
We do have lactose in the mix, so it's been over a year, so I went to write down the Malt Bill because, we release typically normally, well, even during COVID, 50 different beers a year. So it's hard to keep track of all the kids on that front. So it's about a 2,500 pound mash in, and about 11% was lactose. So we, employed some Golden Naked oats. So woo to Simpsons on the Golden Naked oats front. Delicious stuff. And then the usual suspects: chocolate malt, crystal malt, and of course 2-row.
Well, it's like a donut, but so much better. You got all the aromatics of a donut. It's refreshing. It's not too sweet, not nearly as sweet as a donut would be. And I mean, what a great way to have a donut.
I think it's pretty great.
It's phenomenal. I love all the aromatics. They're just, it's just chocolate, a little bit of fruit. It's got a sweet. Is there a little bit of vanilla in it?
Yeah, you're getting some natural vanilla from the oak, but we also put just a touch of vanilla bean in it post aging in oak so that we could kind of punch up that frosting note. So the thing that we didn't want it to be, and I think probably a signature for Sun King, if you've had many of our beers or maybe any of our beers, is that we love to have a balance. Even though we'll tell you that we've done these things, I like to drink for volume and for quality at the same time. So if I can't get through a pint, what's the point? And so, we want to make sure that the beers that we produce, we say what it means, you taste it, and when you get down to the end of the pint, you don't have fatigue. You could go to the next one, right? That is lovely beer. I almost want to give up all my time to hear Jerry talk some more, because that was fantastic.
Well, tell me this. Tell me about the can. Now, this is unusual.
It is, well, it is and it isn't. So if you look at the can and you made it silver and you put a mass-produced multinational conglomerate logo on it from the Rockies, you may notice that can a little bit more. So the story behind the can happened when we were starting our barrel program, and we had one barrel. Right now we've got, between our traditional barrel aging and sour, we've got about 1,000 barrels working presently. But way back in the day when we had a few going on, we're like, okay, well, we can take it to market. How are we going to put it into market? And we were a canning brewery. We were the 53rd craft canning brewery in the U.S. at the time. And my business partner, Clay, said, well, we got to go to bottles. And I said, heck no, but more stronger language than that. And so I go, there's got to be something out there, and we're a Ball customer. Let's contact Ball and see, what they've got going on. So they picked up the phone and they said, who the heck are you guys? And we're like, we're, in your backyard, where you started in Indiana, Ball State, right? All that kind of good stuff with jars. We want to see what other kind of cans options that you have. And they're like, okay, we'll get back to you. And then in 2011, we hit the GABF lottery and we won 8 medals that year at GABF. And then the next week, the phone call came in from Ball, and they're like, hey, you remember that thing we talked about 6 months ago? We'd like to pick that conversation back up. So we did, and they said, do you know anybody at Oscar Blues? And at the time, which was the first craft canning brewery, and at the time, one of my good friends was the head brewer there. So we had a conversation, and we decided to move forward with the Alumitech can, which is the can that you were displaying just then. So we, invested as well as Cask, Canning Company, and Oscar Blues into bringing it into a smaller version versus, the larger other company that had it out there into the world. So we decided that, we wanted to present our beers in a way. It's a 16-ounce can, but we typically serve them in a 2-pack. You can see the Alumitech there. We call it the buddy system. When you have that seriously fun, you're like, oh my gosh, I have this beer and I want to drink it right now. Well, you can, because you can save the other one for that special bro or, gal date when that person's coming over, and then you still have it to share.
Well, it's a quite distinctive can. I mean, I just really love how it looks.
Does the donut turn brown when it's ready?
Absolutely.
Good.
The sprinkles show up when it's ready.
Nice. Very well said.
That's awesome.
Oh, there we go. That's the tap room. So the big...
Yeah, I apologize for not having that up sooner.
Yeah, no worries. So that's the mothership. We've got 37 taps. Let's see. That's a pretty recent lineup going forward. But right behind Doug is an 11-foot tall giant piñata that adorns our Mexican-style lager. And then we call him Marty, the party piñata.
That's awesome.
We like to have a little bit of fun.
Well, clearly, and just a phenomenal beer. Really am enjoying it, and the can is so distinctive that really stands out and looks extremely nice. And also, one thing I noticed, Dave, was it was filled totally to the top. It was even to the top, so I don't think there was any airspace for oxidation.
I'm sure that if you did a puncture test for dissolved oxygen, you would find that the number was 0 on that front. So when you have, everything that comes through our King's Reserve series, when we can it, goes through there, and it's, it takes super lightning fast, 6 people to run the canning line, and we get 6 cans a minute, which is pretty great stuff. So a lot of folks, when you have, big beers, barrel-aged beers, things of that nature, they do tend to want to cellar it. So we want to make sure that it's going to have the longevity that it can have. We have been experimenting doing some can conditioning on that front because, obviously Unibrew and a lot of beautiful European breweries have that, and you get that just gorgeous moose-like head. And hands, clap to you, Jerry, because that's a gorgeous presentation for sure. So, we're efforting that cause as far as that's concerned, but it just felt like the right thing for us to do as a can-forward brewery.
Well, it was right up to the top, which is just a great thing to see. So we're going to move into the questions, if that's okay.
Nope.
All right.
Of course.
I was hoping you'd change your mind. So what was it like brewing that with that many donuts?
Oh man, the brew house was just, glorious smelling. You've got all the crystal malt and chocolate malt and everything else. And then, of course, there were extra donuts. All 500 didn't fit. Some of them may have made it into my ever-expanding COVID belly. But it was a glorious day, just filling the room with cake and chocolate and all kinds of delicious smells.
How'd you get past the sugar high?
I still am.
Oh, what a great question. Thank you, Chris, for that question. So Gary asks, would it be redundant to use that beer in a batter to make donuts?
Oh my God, no. Inception. Let's do it. Yeah.
Dave Witham, a little reaction there?
Yeah, man, that just blew my mind. Hey, Gary, you're a genius.
Yeah.
And then, if you just keep going with it, I guess eventually, I don't know, the world implodes or explodes, and that's it. So
it's already imploding, right?
Yeah. What came first, the beer or the donut?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. No one knows anymore. They're just passed out from either the diabetes or the alcohol. You don't know.
You got to go some way, right?
Right. Exactly. Those are my 2 choices. That's fine.
Yeah, Eric Harding says, I make a Guinness or whichever stout I've recently homebrewed, and this should be a nice ice cream. So, Dave Chris asks, do you have a favorite Sun King beer, or have we just been talking about it?
Ooh, that's a great question. And this is going to sound like I'm dodging it, but it's not. It's whatever beer I'm holding. You know, I mean, they're all my children, and not necessarily Sun King beer, but anybody's beer out there that is delicious and well made. So, and I would go back to OG, because the question that I asked earlier of Paul was, what was the beer that got you hooked on craft, or at least the alternative of typical beers that are available? So being a little bit of an older guy, Watney's Red Barrel was the first sort of, beer, and I was like, whoa, that's a different color. It was a bar that I happened to be working at the time, bartending, and I went, let me try that. And I went, wow, that's pretty good. It's different for sure. But the one that really kind of drove the point home, and I'm sure for a lot of people out there on the internet and in the world, was Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Right? When it made it to our town, and I tasted it, and I went, whoa, that is delicious. Hey, what's that fun extra thing going on? Oh, hops. Shoot, that's cool.
Well, speaking of hops, I have a hop question because, again, I'm interested in hops and stouts. So what hops did you put in your donut? Oh.
It's only 10 IBU. Yes, right, like muy poquito. Kazbek is the hop that we chose for this. Single hop edition, 70 minutes before flame out.
Okay. It's very nice, and it's just adds just enough bitterness to balance out, I guess, a little bit of that lactose sugar that's in there. But very, very nicely done.
Thanks. We're trying not to suck.
Our next question from Dave. No, excuse me, from Gary Fuller in the chat. No, already answered that one. Sorry, that was in there twice. Okay, good question from Gary. So why twist-off bottles? I think you sort of answered that. So maybe a twist is, no pun intended. Are you okay with it being twist-off?
100%, especially if you're looking at, really big beers. This is, especially our traditional barrel aging series, tend to be on the higher side. We don't get the, abject cold that they do up north at Unibrew, but Indiana does get cold in the middle of the winter, and you want a little something that'll warm you up. So the twist off allows you to have a sip, cap it, put it back in the fridge, or let it kind of warm up gradually on the counter if you can't wait, and then, sip it a little bit more. So it's an all-night sipper.
Yeah, that's what I immediately did with mine. So it's very nice.
And if you happen to be walking around someplace and you don't want your beer to slosh out, take a couple of pulls, put the cap back on, put it in your pocket,
If you're trying to be incognito and you...
Right.
Yeah. It's a flask.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
You don't want to spill while you're driving.
Right.
I'm just
I'm going to save it, put some of my homebrew in it.
Some municipalities may not, be cool with you having a beer while you're walking around.
Yeah. Just about all of them, I think.
Cool part is Indiana isn't that way. That's one of those weird rules. We have all kinds. Every state and country has strange rules. But FYI, Indiana, if you are walking around with a beverage, an alcoholic beverage, in its original container, i.e. cans, then it's totally cool. I've been on bike rides with 2 different mayors on our way to a ballpark. We've got a AAA baseball team in town, and riding next to them with cop security, bike riders, like stopping traffic. We do it for opening day, and just having a delicious beer at the same time. It's pretty awesome.
Chris says he's moving to Indiana.
Come on.
The beer's good.
I think we're doing all right.
I think so. Well, with all this innovation in the delicious beer and then the canning also, what can we expect coming around the corner from Sun King?
Well, we just cut loose 12-pack, a mixed 12-pack of seltzers for fun. At some point when we bolted on the distillery to Sun King, we realized that, yes, we're a brewery, but now we're also making spirits. And what does that mean to the overall ethos of Sun King? And we were like, well, we're also a beverage company because we are making other fun beverages for people to enjoy. So we took the next step and said, let's also try our hand at that. So that's coming out. We've got a bunch of different barrel-aged products coming as well. So we have Caramel Apple Triple, which is our Belgian-style triple that we ferment with 7 different yeast strains. We don't have 200 years for natural, change of yeast so that it becomes proprietary. So we do a lot of yeast blending, especially when we're doing Belgian beers. So that'll be coming out. We rum barrel age that bad boy for over a year after a 3-month fermentation. Then we add apples, apples, brown sugar, and cinnamon. And then we take a torch and a annealing torch, and we brulee the apples that are covered in brown sugar and cinnamon, and then we add it back to the barrel and let that age another 3 months. So that guy's coming out soon, next month.
Jerry, did I get a reaction from you when he described that?
That sounds delicious. Just as the donut did, actually, Sometimes I get jealous about all these funny and funky things, I managed my way to brew like a barrel-aged version of Fin de Monde, aged in tequila barrels, back in 2015. But it's very hard to do these things at the brewery. So hats off to you. Honestly, it looks delicious. And for sure, next time I'm in Indiana, I will look for that for sure.
Beer trade.
Sounds like a deal.
Go for it. I would. Definitely.
Nobody else was hearing that, right? That was just
Dave, I'm real intrigued with the barrel room behind you. And you're actually in it versus my green screen. Can you tell us a little bit about that barrel room?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of different things working in here. One of our signature beers is Cherry Busey, which is our kind of homage to a lot of beautiful old brooms from Belgium. So let me see. If you can see the barrel behind me, it's Flanders, right? So we've got a nice Flanders. So what we'll do is when we're doing our Cherry Busey selection, there'll be those special rare barrels that'll pop up that you'll say maybe there's 3 or 4 out of 30. And we'll take that and we'll make that a special blend itself. And we typically refer to that as Stupid Sexy Flanders. So and we have the TM, we have the trademark on that. I don't know why, but it happens. So Stupid Sexy Flanders doesn't come out every year. It's only when, rare pairing of barrels come together. But Cherry Busey is one that we've won. We won 3 GABF medal in a row. We've missed last year on that front, but we, pretty good. Peter Buchart, anybody heard of that guy? Came to our brewery one time, and the one beer he wanted to leave with, because, he's got plenty of beer. He was heading to Chicago for a thing, and he goes, "May I have some more of Cherry Busey?" That was my horrible Belgian accent. So.
Well, and it looks like a lot of barrels. Can you just briefly tell me how many?
Yeah.
Or is it?
We've got about 600 in this room. It goes back and.
Oh, look at
that!
Back. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, it's a decent size, about 2,000 square feet going on. We have some core beers that we do every year, but then we also like to muck around. So we We had a porter that we soured that we called Midnight Choir and added black cherries and a little bit of plum, and that ended up winning gold last year at GABF.
Well, you guys are helping me figure out where I'm going on my next road trip, and I can't wait for COVID to be over to do it.
Amen.
Dave, this was awesome. What a delicious beer.
Cheers,
even just a innovative packaging. Thank you very much for sharing those details. Sharing the beer the first time out of the brewery. What a privilege. Cheers.
My pleasure. Cheers.
All right. Mr. Whitham, you are next.
Oh, boy.
And we are going to switch over to you, and I hope everybody else will hang on for just a little bit longer.
They're bailing. They're out.
Oh, no, they're not. I don't believe it.
How you doing?
Not at all. Okay, we are into the last segment of our programming. I appreciate everybody being here. This has been a lot of fun and really such innovation from these brewers. I am just, it is always a tremendous education. And so now I can't wait to hear from Dave. So Dave Whitham is the founder of Proclamation Ale Company. Now, Dave spent his former life as a musician and music teacher. And I've seen a little bit of his studio there. He's got some nice gear, and I bet he's got some music to go with it. He fell into the same home brewing rabbit hole that many craft brewers fall into and awoke one day in early 2014 to realize he had actually opened a brewery. Now, I really doubt it was quite that easy, but about halfway through its current timeline, William and Team Proclamation jumped ship, then moved from West Kingston, Rhode Island to Warwick, Rhode Island, in order to have room to expand to its current 15,000 square foot brewery, which also includes a very spacious tap room, unfortunately that nobody can visit at the moment. And speaking of that, I will give us an idea of what that tap room looks like. And it looks better without me in it. But I'll ruin it.
Oh, my God. Dude, the alarm didn't go off. What's going on?
That's right. And then in Oakville, you have a mixed fermentation room with some additional production space. So that just sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty good. I feel like I'm, dude, how am I going to follow these guys up? Come on. What are we doing here? So, we started really small, or actually I would say that I started really small because literally it was me. That's it. I was the guy that's like, no, you can totally do a nano. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Totally viable business model. It's swell. No, it sucks. We started there. I was a 3-barrel, which then turned into a 7-barrel. And the 7, we got some 15s, and that made things a little bit more viable. And we started to kind of get a name under our belt by, I think a little bit of a horseshoe in the butt, and just right place, right time. Look, we maybe still are, but we went through the golden age of beer, and I will say this: like, we did some stuff okay, and but literally like the golden age of beer. I mean, you couldn't go wrong, right? So anyway, we started there. We got to the point where we were just selling cans, kind of like loading dock style, and the New England thing, right? So, and we're in New England. I didn't know people had to call it a New England IPA till I left New England. And then I just thought that's how we were, So, anyway, we got to the point where we were just couldn't make enough beer, so we had to find a bigger spot, and we moved to Warwick, which is we're literally across the street from the airport there. And the big joke is if anyone wants to do a collab, when we can travel again, like you can just fly to the airport and walk across the street, and that's kind of cool. So we moved there, and we got, we were doing some mixed fermentation at the old place, but we had 30 oak barrels. It was like crammed against the wall and stuff. We have about 2,000 square feet there now. We focus, our bread and butter were kind of our IPAs, double IPAs, hoppy beers. I think like most people, right? And but we've gotten to stretch out a little bit more, with the increased capacity. So yeah. That's sort of the thing.
Well, and tell us a little bit more about this tap room. I mean, I'm ready to go.
It's kind of freaking me out right now. You're just there, I haven't seen anyone in the tap room in quite some time. So that's an early iteration. Things have changed a little bit, but that we kind of, the tap room is sort of I like to think of it as a haven for kind of nerds and miscreants and misfits and that sort of thing. So we had the arcade going, which we've flushed out a little bit more. So we have some. I think who was saying it before they had the rec room and stuff like that. So we focus on that. We have a huge projector on one wall, or not the projector, but a huge screen on one wall. We're always playing either 80s movies, B movies, that kind of stuff. And we comfortably, get 150, 200 people in there with, room to spare, a little bit of outdoor space and stuff like that. So it's nice, stretch out. But, I will say this is that where we came from, our tap room was very much we were a tap room first brewery. Like that was kind of how we grew, and how we started. And this is we're still doing okay, but our identity has been really kind of skewed with everything going on. So I think most people have, but we're making it work, and we're a lot more distribution now than we used to be. So.
Well, speaking of your identity though, looking at this label, I mean, that makes a beautiful impression on the shelf. I mean, that's a really nice design that you've got there.
Thanks, man. My wife Lori, who is upstairs from me right now, is our designer. So she was actually working for a larger corporation doing design, and was kind of like the night hustle of me being like, "Hey, we have a new beer coming out. Can you do this for me? That would be great." But now she's full time with us as of our move, a few years ago now. Oof, wow. But yeah, so she does good work, and we're proud of what she brings to the table. And yeah.
Well, I'm impressed with it. It looks very nice. I'm ready to pour mine.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm already digging in. I hope it traveled well.
Well, if the aromas are any indication, I mean, they're filling the room.
Well, that's good.
Now, the stouts are wonderful, and I love them, but they just don't have the room-filling aromas that this beer has.
Right on.
And
so, that's our... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just noticing, Gary says he wants the glass.
Right on. It's a great whiskey tumbler, too.
So tell me a little bit about it. It's an unusual size, and the design is phenomenal.
Yeah, so that was actually that's actually an Oakville glass. So that was I will say this. We do a lot of kind of like teardrop wine glass and tulip shaped glasses, obviously for the aromatics and everything like that. That's one of the glasses we use for our a lot of the sours that we put out, or mixed firm beers from Oakville. But that travels and presents itself as an IPA glass pretty well too. So yeah, thanks.
And this is a double IPA, right?
Yeah, it's what is it, 8.5? Yep, that's. Listen, Citra Mosaic and Vic Secret. I mean, it's auto win.
Well,
there you go.
That's a phenomenal head for a double IPA. Usually the alcohol will keep that head down, and along with wonderful aromatics.
I will say this, and I know that some of my guys are watching right now, so I'm going to give them props. We were talking about it for a while, but we've been spunding our IPAs, and I first was kind of thinking about it. So we're capping the tanks, prior to terminal gravity, and letting them catch like you would in a lager, some of the natural bubbles, so you get a little bit of the smaller bubbles, tighter foam. And like I know everyone here likes, as they're coming back on, foam boys. So yeah, that's been huge, and that's actually a recent development. We hated just because we're probably tight. We're a little tighter on packaging tanks than we want to be, and basically, like sometimes we'd be blowing the beers pretty hard to and you don't want to be venting all the aromatics off and everything. So, keep everything in. And so that's one thing that we've been trying to do with pretty much all the beers at this point in time, which, I think might be normal for some people, but as primarily hazy brewers, that's, look, we're not well versed in technique. We don't know what we're doing. But anyway, yeah.
So it really tastes like it's extremely fresh. How fresh was the one you sent me, if I can ask?
So it's the same batch as this. So let's see if I can see. My old man eyes are coming in. It's about like 16, 17 days, something like that. It was kind of the 7th. Yeah, a little under 3 weeks. Wow. Yeah. That's
really fresh.
Right on. Thanks, man.
For an IPA, that's fantastically fresh. Well, it tastes like it, just a wonderful head, and I love the haze in it. So that is very nice. I'm going to try and I have to turn on the side camera to catch that view.
So it's funny with the because you mentioned me talking about process, right, in this thing. So I will say this is that. It's a little bit weird to look back, but we were probably one of the first 7 to 8 breweries in the United States doing hazy beers. We're nestled right in the Trillium Treehouse region, so everybody knows who those guys are. And Bissell's like a few hours north of us, and it was just this thing that started happening kind of before it kind of spread, and now California and Spain and everyone making hazy beer everywhere, but. It was a fight to figure out. We couldn't go on Google and figure out how to make hazy beer. Like we were trying in real time to learn how to make hazy beer, and which was weird to most people. And I think it still is to some, obviously. But we would have batches and we're like, this doesn't look right. Like it cleared up too much. And everything that we had learned before that was, well, no, that's what you wanted to do, right? So, yeah.
So is there a secret you can share on hazy beers?
I think everyone knows it now. It's kind of like a. They don't. I thought it was pretty prevalent knowledge at this point in time. It's the yeast strain. It's one of a few English strains that you can choose from, and high protein adjuncts or malt and maybe doing some doing some sort of dry hopping while yeast is active before you're which isn't actually that weird. We've moved the dry hop schedule around a lot, but at this point in time we're kind of doing we'll do 2, but we do one pretty close to the end like you would on the West Coast, within one Plato of where we're finishing out. So and then just hitting it again after we pull out all the junk. So, yeah.
Well, Paul, do you have a specific question?
No, I have no idea how to make hazies, nor need to learn right now.
Yeah, there's always that.
I do.
What's that?
Well, Paul, meet Dave with him.
Yeah, well,
Dave, meet Paul. Sounds like you two need to get together and talk.
Well, or at least have a few beers together, along with Jerry and that bowler.
That's
I really want to know what's under that hat.
All the ideas he already told you, for God's sake. So, Dave, what is your favorite biotransformation punk band?
Well, I just fall off the ground. I don't know, man. No, I think that's a little bit of that's a little bit of a load of crap too, right? The whole biotransformation thing. I don't know. I mean,
and what do you really think?
I mean, like I said, I was going to be you told me to instigate, right? Is that what you told me? Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, go for it.
No. I mean, there's something that happens, whether it's practical or it's science or whatever, with those yeast strains and with those hops. There are people that do it better than others. There are people that do it pretty bad, where it's like, you pour out the can, and one thing that I've always fought with my guys is like, look, we don't have a centrifuge. We're not filtering. So, but I also don't want to pour my can and then like the last inch is like what comes out of the bottom of the fermenter, So I mean, there is an art to it, and there is a science to it, and there's good and there's bad, but yeah, it is what it is.
Jerry, you look like you're nodding in violent agreement.
To get a good A's stability, most of the time you have to go through protein rest, to break down these proteins and make sure like they will remain stable as long as possible. Obviously, it's not the only parameter, as we mentioned, because the yeast is there. Obviously, the yeast will bring A's as well, but these protein rests most of the time are essential to have something like with a very good colloidal stability. But these beers as a double IPA are intended to be drank as fresh as possible, so you don't have to deal with A's stability most of the time. And as you mentioned, you have the can, and it says around the top of the can, drink it fresh, or drink it from the can,
Right.
It's like,
I don't want
try to pour
it
it in the glass.
Yeah, I mean, but there is like a, we would do, we've done fests in like we've gone to Sweden and we've gone to Belgium and poured, and as a kind of be like on the front end of like that sort of the styles kind of drifting over there, and there is some, it's like they don't travel well. We went and poured with our friends at Stroys, and I was like, I'm not pouring this, man. Like, we'll pour these two, but I'm not pouring this one, because it just, it's not meant to go on a plane. Even if you fly it in like a day or something, it just is not meant to be. So, but, and that's the interesting thing, is like, we're trying to do everything that we can to have the balance of the intent of the hazy IPA, but package as well as we can in the means that we can, in order to, especially in this time period where taproom is, we could open our taproom, we choose not to. So we're making an intentional decision to not do that. And
that sounds like a good experience, though, to have a taproom with you playing music and having people around to jam, and music and beer, always been going very well together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to make them travel as well as they can, and that was a big concern when we started working with Tavor, actually. But they treat the stuff so well, and this is not it's semi-sponsored, but not told me to make some proclamation. But they would only pick up their beers on the day that we can them, like, and it's like they want to get them as soon as they can back to them, so they can get them to the people that want to buy them, and that's the only way it would work. I was terrified. I'm like, you think I'm going to ship stuff across the country and then like let it sit on some warehouse dock or something? No, but they do it right, and it's cool. So we do what we can, and we hope everyone else does what they can too.
All right, I've got two questions. I'm going to ask the first one, and I want you to think about the answer, and then I've got another one that one of our viewers has asked. So the first one is, as a musician, how similar is it to creating a beer recipe and brewing it to music? Think about that before you answer it.
I thought
the other question was, we have a viewer, and I don't have a name. I'm sorry I don't have a name, but they're very intrigued with the logo on the glass. So they want to know a little bit more about that, and I will try and turn on the side camera and operate it and see what we can see there. So what can you tell us?
I'll do the logo first. So our main logo, I don't have anything in front. I kind of do. Wait, hang on a second. Here we go. So this is our original logo, the P with the lines, if you can see. I'm trying to hold it up and whatever. So
yeah.
That's our original logo, and we've done a lot of like sort of variations on that. So that one, like that glass that you have in particular, was for Oakville, and there we had sort of like barrel staves was the idea, kind of like around the surrounding the P logo of that wrap. And actually, I think we had another glass where they wrap more. Certain glasses full wrap, certain not. So yeah, that's the story.
And what is the material made out of? Is it it almost looks like platinum or something like that. It's a grayish.
It's a silver. It's a platinum or silver. It is a different. I'd have to ask my wife because she's the designer and the one that.
It's very attractive, against the yellow in the beer. It really sets it off. So again, you've got some nice design work going there. Nice. It's fantastic. So let's get back to my question.
Yeah.
As a musician,
yeah,
now brewer, or musician and brewer, how similar is it?
One word: composition, right? So that's it. I mean, it like anything. I remember actually specifically listening to an interview with Garrett Oliver, like 5 years ago, and he was speaking about how I think he came from. I want to say he was saying something about film. And he had done work with film before, and that's it's just a different medium, right? So like whether it's telling a story in a long format or a short 20-minute format, whatever it is, you need to understand how everything plays together. And I think that while they are completely different, there is something about composition in general, whether it's design or movies or music or film or beer. Whatever, that there is a crossover of like maybe just the this part, So yeah.
Well, actually, that's a great segue. Now, Jerry sent me a video that we didn't get a chance to play, but it's only a minute. No. It's a minute long. Would you indulge me, Dave, with just a minute of your time for a musical video?
This feels like a setup.
It's really not. Okay. It's really not. Hang on a quick second.
Hey, I'm Dave Mustaine, and I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Jerry Vietz and our relationship with Unibrew and with this new beer, Tout le Monde. All of you know that I'm a very, very particular artist, and it was such a treat to be able to meet somebody who is as particular about his work as I am about mine. And when you think about making beer, you don't really think about how artistic it is, but when I met Jerry, I learned so much, and he is so passionate about what he does, and it's such a treat to be able to have gone to the brewery and to meet everybody in the Unibrew family. I'm guaranteeing you're going to like this beer, and when you meet Jerry, you're going to love him just like I do. It's been so much fun to do this process, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Jerry, me, you, and Dave Mustaine are hanging out later. That's all I'm saying.
That is baller right there.
Yeah, that's anyway, so many stories. We can do another podcast
I'm sure.
Sold.
Yeah.
No, music is my therapy. I'm really happy that you mentioned that because, by the way, your logo looks like a vinyl record. I have
I've heard
impressive vinyl collection at home, and music is my therapy. I don't play professionally because I don't have time anyway, but I come back home and I play music. It's like just so much inspiration, it's just a different form of art, at the end. So very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good way to soothe the brain after a bunch of,
Oh yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, Chris says we ought to do a music-focused podcast.
Sounds like a deal.
There you go.
We have a lot of music-inspired beers, so yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
I can drink and listen to music too.
Whoa, me too.
We have so much in common.
We're new best friends.
It's like a match made in heaven.
Yes.
Well, Dave Witham, we've got just maybe 3 minutes left before we kind of wrap up.
Yep.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's coming up at Proclamation besides some really cool designs and delicious beers.
I think, right now we are focused on, I would say this, we are focused on making it through. Like that was our main focus, right? Because there's something. The new one is that, and I kind of challenged my guys the other day that I said, look, we're wrapped up in this thing and how everybody's living right now. And let's come out the other side of it with something good. So I want everyone to think about things and think about like techniques. Cause I feel like, and I said this to you joking, Doug, earlier, is that like, hey, like, look, we're making hazy beer. We're beating a dead horse. Right. I think that there's still a little bit besides like packaging innovation and the things that are more like important to brewers, but maybe not important to people. I think that there are maybe some new flavors and new techniques that can be approached and we're diving into them a little bit. We're excited to be doing, actually I was drinking one at the beginning of the video. My guys working in Oakville have been working on blending fresh, like dry beer, like sort of the coupage sort of thing. But taking specifically made like New England IPA kind of style, but dried out a little bit more, but still with the mouthfeel, and then blending it with like aged, 1-year-old like Foder beer and stuff like that, and then doing can conditioning on that, and that stuff is like, that's exciting. I was drinking that beer, and it's been the first thing in a while where I've been like, shit, this is new. Like it's you get like the kind of Brett IPA thing that was around for a while, but it's a little bit cleaner and fresher and more vibrant, and the work is the stability, and there are people that are messing with doing things around that, and they're I don't think we're first ones to the table by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm excited for that, and maybe some other things too, and I think it's just important that we keep on pushing, because it's easy to fall back on your laurels, especially when you can't go anywhere, and every day is the same.
Well, and Aaron Glass says we ought to share our playlist. That would be interesting. What a great idea, Aaron. Well, guys, this has been a tremendous amount of fun. What a variety of delicious beers, an amazing array of brewers, and all the different perspectives you each have in your approach, but how they all really have great composition. Is that what you said, Dave? Because they're really well balanced. I was. It reminds me that I was at a beer judging, and there was an extremely catty beer, and I called it an off flavor, and the brewer challenged me on it, and I thought, well, that is a good challenge, and I researched it thoroughly, and the answer that came back was it has to be in balance, and I think that comes back to what you said, the composition. So. This was a tremendous amount of fun. We have about 45 seconds left, and we will have a hard stop. But, gentlemen, delicious beers, beautiful glassware, phenomenal stories. What a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing your evening with me, and we look forward to having you and our other guests who joined us. This was just a lot of fun. VG says a very great night. Gary Fuller says an awesome evening. Thank you all. So, cheers, gentlemen.
Thanks, Doug.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave and Jerry. And
yeah, thank you guys. It was fun.
Look forward to drinking with you all.
You bet.
Oh yeah,
hope you can travel
in
again.
person. You know.
Yes,
Post-COVID
yes.
beer.
Get Dave Mustaine on the phone. We're going. Let's go. Right on.
Here we go.
Thank you, man.
Roll.
Right on, man.
All right.
Fantastic.
All right.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Good evening. Bye-bye.